You're listening to Overhead Story Channel. Enjoy.
The house was quiet in that way that makes you instinctively lower your voice, even when you're alone. I had just come back from a long day at the office, the kind of day where every email feels like an insult and every meeting drags into infinity. The rain had started on the drive home, one of those soft, lazy drizzles that made the roads glisten and the sky press down a little heavier on everything. Tessa's car was already in the driveway, which was surprising. Usually, I beat her home. She said her yoga class ended late on Tuesdays. I pushed the front door open, balancing my keys and backpack, and was immediately greeted by silence. No music, no faint hum of a show from the bedroom, not even the usual sound of Tessa chatting on the phone with one of her sisters. Just the whir of the thermostat and the ticking of the hallway clock. It wasn't until I turned the corner into the living room that something strange caught my eye. Her laptop. Tessa never leaves her laptop open when she's not around it. She's borderline obsessive about keeping it locked, too many client files, she'd say. And I never pressed. I trusted her. But there it was, sitting on the edge of the coffee table like it had just been used. The screen was still on, glowing softly in the dim room. At first, I thought it was just a project file or Pinterest board. She's a graphic designer and always had half a dozen things open. But this wasn't that. There was a folder. Right there, plain as day. Bold, italicized, and intentionally named. Not for husband. I stared at it for a few seconds, wondering if it was some kind of joke. Like an inside thing. A prank. Maybe something she was working on for one of our couple friends, a bachelorette slideshow or a gag gift. That would be like her. But even thinking that, I felt something twist in my gut. Curiosity won. I clicked the folder. A chat window popped open immediately. A direct message thread, some platform I didn't recognize, but it looked sleek, maybe encrypted, definitely not Gmail or Slack. The name of the person she was messaging was just an initial, D. And the messages? They weren't jokes. God, I still think about that night. You looked so good in that red dress, I couldn't think straight. I hate when you have to go home to him. And then the one that stayed burned into my brain. You're better than him in every way. I didn't even realize I'd stopped breathing. My hands were frozen on the keyboard. I didn't scroll right away. I was stuck, staring at that line, trying to convince myself that maybe there was another explanation. But no. The rest of the conversation was still unfolding in real time. This wasn't some saved thread or an old chat. Messages were popping up live, being typed while I stood there like a statue. I started reading backward, trying to piece together the context. The names weren't mentioned. Just coded references. You know I'd pick you over him. He has no idea. Every time I see you, I forget how to pretend. They had a rhythm. Familiarity. Inside jokes. There was history there. This wasn't a flotation. This wasn't a mistake. This was something real. I didn't hear her come in. The door closed quietly behind her, and then came the sound of her boots on the hardwood. I turned just in time to see her walk into the room holding a brown paper grocery bag. She stopped dead when she saw me. Then, without missing a beat, her eyes moved to the screen. She didn't panic. No gasp, no rush to close the laptop, no scrambling to explain. Just calm. Hey, she said, setting the bag down on the entryway bench like this was any other night. Tessa, I said, my voice low, hoarse. She stepped out of her boots, unbuttoned her coat. Methodical. Measured. Like she was stepping into a scene she'd rehearsed. You're home early, she said. My hand was still hovering near the laptop. I couldn't stop staring at the screen. What is this? I asked. She walked into the room, didn't even glance at the screen again. What do you mean? I stood up, my heart pounding so loudly I thought she could hear it. I pointed. This, I said. This message thread. This conversation. Who is D? She gave a small shrug. It's nothing. Just a friend. Just a friend. My voice cracked. Friends don't say things like that. They don't say you're better than your husband in every way. There was a long pause. She looked at me, really looked, and for a moment I searched her face for guilt. Or panic. Or shame. But what I saw was something worse. Preparation. She wasn't shocked that I had found the messages. She wasn't scrambling to deny anything. She was just waiting. Like this moment had been inevitable and all she had to do now was manage it. You shouldn't have gone through my laptop, she said. That's what you're starting with? I asked, my voice rising. That I shouldn't have looked? I'm just saying, she said calmly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. If you're going to invade my privacy, you shouldn't act surprised by what you find. I stared at her, stunned. So, it's true. I asked. There's someone else? She exhaled slowly, as if I were exhausting her. There's someone who listens, she said finally. Someone who sees me. I swallowed hard. And what am I? Furniture. She didn't answer. My hands were shaking. I backed away from the table, from the laptop, from her. Who is he? She tilted her head slightly like she was studying me. Does it matter? She asked. Would a name make it better or worse? I felt something inside me snap, but I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I didn't cry. I just looked at her, this woman I thought I knew, and realized how much I didn't. After that night, everything shifted. And not in the way you'd expect, not some explosive fallout or screaming match or one of us storming off into the rain. No, it was quieter than that. It was subtle, which somehow made it worse. Tessa didn't deny anything. She didn't confess either. She just absorbed my discovery like it was overdue. Like she'd been living in this strange purgatory between two lives and was relieved that one had finally caught up to the other. The next morning, we sat in silence over coffee. Her laptop was gone, she'd moved it to the bedroom. She didn't try to explain, didn't bring it up at all. And I didn't push. I couldn't. Because as much as I wanted answers, I was still too stunned to form the right questions. But that silence, that heavy, suffocating silence, made room for something else, memory. I started replaying everything. Things I brushed off. Ignored. Explained away because it was easier than confronting the possibility of betrayal. Like when she changed her phone password about 6 months ago. She said her work required it, new cybersecurity policy. Seemed reasonable at the time. But now I remembered how she clutched that phone a little tighter after that. How she took it with her even when she went to take a shower, tucked it under a towel like it was a fragile heirloom. Or how she started running. That one should have stood out more. Tessa hated running. Always called it masochism disguised as self-care. But then, like clockwork, she started going out at 6 a.m. every Tuesday and Thursday, rain or shine. I was proud of her at first. I even bought her new shoes. But she always came home dry even when it poured. And once she smelled like cologne, subtle, unfamiliar. I mentioned it. She said it was probably from someone who passed her on the trail. God, how did I miss it? There was that therapy group too. Some emotional healing circle thing. She said it helped her decompress. I encouraged it, who wouldn't want their spouse to work through their baggage? But when I tried to surprise her once, the building was locked. Dark. A handwritten sign on the door, all Thursday sessions paused until further notice. I never mentioned that to her. I told myself maybe she was meeting a friend nearby instead. She was always vague when she came home from those nights, said it was intense or a lot to process. What a joke. I remember how she stopped needing me. I don't mean emotionally, though that happened too, but physically, logistically. She used to ask me to open jars, to help her carry heavy grocery bags, to fix things around the house she couldn't reach. But gradually, those little moments disappeared. I'd offer help and she'd say, "It's okay, I've got it." I thought it meant she was becoming more independent. No, it meant she was becoming separate. She stopped making eye contact during long conversations. Stopped touching me absent-mindedly. Stopped asking me to go anywhere with her. Everything became solo. She started using language that sounded like detachment dressed up as self-improvement. Phrases like, "I'm focusing on me right now and I'm learning to set healthier boundaries." Boundaries from what? From me? I found myself dissecting everything, even the way she spoke. There was a time she'd say, "We should go check out that new sushi place," or "We should visit your parents this fall." But those little we's vanished. Now it was just I want to take a weekend trip. I need some alone time. I've been rethinking a few things. I thought she was just overwhelmed. Stressed. Recalibrating. But the truth was she had already left me. She just hadn't moved out yet. Every new memory that surfaced was like a shard of glass in my gut. I kept trying to remember our last good moment together, really good, not just polite. I couldn't. Maybe that was the worst part. How quickly something solid can rot from the inside, quietly, until all that's left is the shape of something that used to matter. I didn't confront her again right away. I didn't even bring it up. It felt pointless, honestly. Like trying to fix a cracked mirror by pretending the cracks aren't there. She'd already made her choice. All I had now was the aftermath. But I started paying closer attention. One night, she said she was going to a late dinner with her coworker Marcy. I nodded, kissed her cheek, watched her grab her coat and head for the door. Then I waited. 20 minutes later, I called Marcy. She answered on the second ring, her voice groggy. "Hey, Calvin? Sorry to bother you," I said, trying to sound casual. "Just wanted to make sure Tessa got there okay." A pause. "Got where?" I smiled thinly even though she couldn't see it. "Never mind. My bad. Thought she was meeting you." "Nope," Marcy said. "Haven't seen her in a couple weeks." "Everything okay?" "Yeah, I lied. All good. Thanks." She hadn't gone to Marcy's. She hadn't even bothered to come up with a backup plan. That's how comfortable she'd become with lying to me. I ended the call and just sat there for a while, letting the realization settle. The woman I married, the woman I built a life around, was living an entirely separate existence, one I wasn't invited to. That night, I opened a blank note on my phone and started writing things down. Dates, times, excuses, anything that felt off. It wasn't even for confrontation, it was for clarity. I needed to stop lying to myself. Eventually, I couldn't sleep without checking that note. I'd lie in bed beside her, both of us facing opposite directions, the distance between our bodies a canyon that once held love and now held silence. She started texting more often, always with that faint smile on her face, like the rest of the world was giving her something I couldn't. And maybe it was. One day, I saw her in the kitchen humming. Actually humming. I hadn't seen her that light in months. I asked what she was thinking about. She said nothing in particular. But I wasn't stupid anymore. I watched her close herself off, one little behavior at a time. Her laughter changed. Her moods fluctuated wildly, ecstatic one moment, distant the next. She became careful with her words. Not cautious, deliberate. Like every sentence was filtered through a PR rep. And me? I started fading from her narrative entirely. She told her friends she was finding herself. She told her family she was taking time to reflect. But she never told me anything at all. And the worst part? She looked more alive now than she had in months. It all came to a head on a Saturday. Not a remarkable one, no anniversary, no fight, no weird vibe in the air. Just a regular, overcast weekend where everything should have felt normal. That's probably what made it worse. Betrayal is supposed to come with fireworks or some cinematic moment where everything unravels in a flash. But the truth? It's slower, colder. A slow-motion collision you can't look away from. Tessa said she was going out for a girls' night. We're grabbing drinks, maybe going dancing, she told me, brushing on her mascara in the hallway mirror. Don't wait up. She wore that red dress, the one I remembered from our third anniversary, back when she still held my hand in public and laughed with her whole face. I said she looked nice, and she gave me a half-smile that didn't reach her eyes. Thanks, she said, grabbing her purse. I nodded, playing my part. What she didn't know was that I'd installed a tracking app on her phone the day before. It wasn't an impulsive decision. I wrestled with it for weeks. I hated the idea of it. I hated who it made me. But I hated not knowing more. I hated the lies even more than the thought of betrayal. And at this point, I needed facts. I needed truth, whatever it looked like. So when the door shut behind her and the house fell quiet, I sat on the couch, phone in hand, and watched. She didn't go downtown like she said. Didn't head toward the cluster of bars her friends usually frequented. Instead, her location started drifting south, out past the city limits, down the coast highway. I watched the blinking dot as it moved further and further from the story she'd told. 30 minutes later, she stopped near the shore, in a neighborhood I knew well, secluded beach houses, the kind that cost too much and were mostly owned by people who only used them 3 weekends a year. I knew exactly where she was. And more importantly, I knew what I had to do. I didn't pack a bag or grab anything dramatic. I just got in my car, kept my headlights off for as long as I could, and followed the route until I was parked a block away from the house her location pointed to. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might rattle the steering wheel. From the outside, the house looked quiet. One of those 2-story, glass-heavy places with a wraparound balcony. Lights were on upstairs. A soft glow spilled out from the 2nd-story window. It would have looked peaceful if it weren't for the noise inside me. I didn't go to the door. I didn't call or text or knock. I launched the drone. It was a cheap one, nothing fancy, but it had a camera and a quiet hum. I'd bought it weeks ago and justified it to myself as a hobby I was thinking of picking up. But the truth was, I had bought it for this. I flew it around the side of the house, just under the roofline. The window was open slightly. Through the lens, I saw everything I needed to see. She was in the living room, sitting on the floor in that red dress. Her shoes were off and her legs were tucked under her. She was laughing big, carefree laughs, the kind I hadn't heard from her in months. There was a man behind her, older, maybe mid-30s. Clean-cut. Smiling. Hands on her shoulders. A bottle of wine between them. Music playing low. She looked at him like he was gravity. They weren't hiding. They weren't cautious or guilty. It wasn't an affair in the shadows. It was a celebration. I watched them clink glasses. She leaned into him, said something I couldn't hear, and he kissed her on the cheek like he'd done it 1,000 times. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't sneaking around. She had moved on. Emotionally, mentally, physically. This wasn't a one-time slip or a moment of weakness. This was a life she had chosen. A version of herself I had never been invited into. I brought the drone back, landed it in the bushes, and just sat in my car for a long time. Long enough for the engine to go cold and the windows to fog slightly from my breath. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't even feel shock anymore. What I felt was clarity. This was it. The confirmation I needed. And it came not from a confrontation or a confession, but from the undeniable image of her wrapped in someone else's life like she belonged there. The strange part? There was a kind of relief in it. For weeks, I'd been living in a fog of suspicion, second-guessing everything, every look, every text, every smile. But now, there were no more questions. No more guesswork. I drove home with a stillness I hadn't felt in months. Not peace exactly. Just the cold certainty that the marriage I thought I had no longer existed. Maybe it never had, not in the way I believed. Back at the house, I locked the front door behind me, poured myself a glass of water, and sat down at the dining table with my laptop. I opened the folder I'd been quietly building, *TS, text logs, date-stamped observations. And now drone footage. I backed everything up to an encrypted drive. She didn't know I'd been preparing for this. She didn't know I'd already contacted a lawyer 2 weeks ago, that the papers were being drawn up quietly. She didn't know I'd started separating our finances, removing my name from things, rerouting mail to a P.O. box she didn't know existed. She didn't know the locks were digital and I just updated the passcodes. Because when someone chooses to lie to you so thoroughly, so consistently, you don't wait around for the apology. You prepare for the exit. The man who drove back from that beach house wasn't the same man who'd been sitting in his living room 2 weeks ago, clutching at explanations and half-hopes like they were life preservers. Something had shifted, calcified. I'd seen everything I needed to see, there was no room left for maybes. I didn't cause a scene. No texts. No confrontation. I didn't even let the car idle in front of her betrayal like some cinematic final act. I simply left. That house, that window, that dress, it was already part of the past. By the time I got home, my mind was already focused on execution. I'd spent weeks preparing for this, but now it wasn't theory. It was implementation. First, I opened the banking app. Every account we'd ever shared was already flagged and divided. I'd rerouted my direct deposits to a separate account under my name weeks ago. Now, I revoked her access to everything. Checking, savings, emergency fund, even the travel account we used to plan summer trips that never happened. Then the credit cards. We had 3 joint ones, all for different purposes. I disabled them. Froze them mid-transaction. Any open lines where she could make a withdrawal? Gone. She wouldn't find out until she tried to buy something and got declined. I moved on to the house. The locks had always been digital. Tessa liked the convenience, the automation. It made her feel like the house was smarter than it was. What she didn't know was that I'd quietly created a separate admin account and slowly transferred control over time. Every passcode, hers, the one for guests, the backup was deleted. I generated new codes and set them to expire every 48 hours unless manually renewed. The next morning, I contacted the lawyer again. It's confirmed, I said, voice steady. Understood, she replied without a trace of surprise. I'll finalize the draft and prepare to file first thing Monday. We'd met 3 times already. I'd sat in her office under the soft hum of overhead lights and told her everything quietly, factually. I wasn't there to cry. I was there to protect myself. She called my preparation uncommon but commendable. I called it survival. Do you want to notify her personally, she asked, or shall I? You will, I said. Serve her at work. Let her be the one caught off guard. I wasn't being vindictive. I was being fair. She'd played her games in the dark. Let the truth meet her in the daylight. That weekend, I boxed up her remaining things. Not everything, just the stuff she couldn't deny was hers. Drawers of jewelry. Cosmetics. Old journals. Her vision board, a corkboard of magazine cutouts about dreams she never pursued. I didn't touch the framed photos. Not yet. That would come later. I took down the photos of us from the hallway. The one in Paris. The one at my brother's wedding. The one from our first apartment when we still thought burnt pancakes and late-night dance parties meant we were doing life right. I wrapped them in newspaper and stacked them in the guest room, far away from where I spent most of my time. She texted me late Saturday night. Had fun with the girls. You'd hate the bar. Too loud. I'll be home late. Love you. I didn't respond. I watched the message sit there, a lie trying to wear the skin of a truth. It didn't even sting anymore. Sunday morning came, and with it stillness. I vacuumed. Did laundry. Mowed the lawn. Things that reminded me that this was still my home. That it was becoming mine again, inch by inch. She didn't come back until nearly noon. I heard the engine first, then the sound of tires crunching against the driveway gravel. Her usual light tap on the door followed. But the lock didn't respond. Then came a pause. Another tap, slightly louder. Another pause. Then the sound of her keypad tones, our old code, inputted wrong. Then again. Then again. She knocked. Cal? Nothing. More knocking. Then the unmistakable sound of her voice turning sharp. Calvin? Still nothing. I stood upstairs, behind the curtain, and watched her through the window. She paced in circles. Pulled out her phone. Made a call. My phone buzzed once. Then again. Then 3 more times. I let it buzz. The messages came next. Hey, something's wrong with the door. Did you change the lock? Please answer. Calvin, this isn't funny. Are you there? I don't understand what's happening. Then, Cal, I'm worried. Please call me. I watched her walk to the end of the driveway and back. At one point, she sat on the front steps like a guest waiting for a host who forgot they had company. Eventually, she left. Her car pulled away. But the messages kept coming. Each one a little more urgent. A little more pleading. By the evening, she tried from a different number. The message tone was the same. I'm sorry if I upset you. Can we talk? It's not what you think. There's more to the story. No, there wasn't. There was no story left to tell. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with a glass of water and reread every message like a stranger had sent them. I didn't feel anger, just detachment, because I realized something profound. She wasn't trying to come back to fix things. She was trying to come back because her other life had thinned out. Because comfort is magnetic when chaos collapses. She was returning not out of remorse, but out of inconvenience. She was hoping the man I used to be, the patient one, the understanding one, the one who made room for her storms, would still be waiting inside this house. But that man had vanished. What remained was someone else entirely. She came back the next day like nothing had happened. Like the door would magically open, the past week could be rewritten, and everything would reset itself. I heard her car pull in just before dusk. This time she didn't knock. She tried the keypad first. Same code. No luck. Again. Still nothing. Then the knocking. It started casual, 2 light taps. The kind you'd use if you'd forgotten your keys, not your marriage. I watched from the 2nd floor, leaning against the window frame with a glass of water. She stood there in a long beige coat, holding her phone in one hand and her patience in the other. I didn't move. Then came the calls. First one. Then another from a different number. Then a blocked one. Each one I let ring out, then silenced the phone entirely. That's when the messages started again. Calvin, I don't know what's happening. Please just open the door. We can talk about it. I know I messed up. If you're angry, I get it. But this isn't the way to handle it. I laughed quietly, bitterly. Not the way to handle it? She'd lied to me for months, and now she was giving me advice on emotional conduct? I set the phone on the windowsill and kept watching. She finally sat down on the top step of the porch like someone waiting for a ride that would never show. Her posture changed slowly. At first, she sat up straight, chin high, eyes darting from the door to the street like she had a plan. But as the minutes stretched into an hour, her shoulders rounded. Her legs tucked up closer to her chest. Her phone dropped into her lap. The mask started to slip. But not in the way I hoped. She didn't cry. She didn't look haunted or regretful. She just looked inconvenienced. Like someone trying to figure out the next step in a plan that had suddenly gone sideways. Eventually, she stood, brushed off her coat, and walked back to her car. No pounding on the door. No shouting through the walls. Just one last message left on voicemail this time because she must have realized I wasn't reading the texts anymore. Calvin, I know you saw something. I can explain it. But this? Locking me out? That's not you. That's not the man I know. Please. Let's just talk. We owe each other that. She ended the call with a quiet breath, like a sigh she was trying to disguise as strength. But she was wrong. We didn't owe each other anything anymore. And the man she knew? He didn't live here anymore. The next few days were silent, at least outside my head. Inside, it was different. I went over every moment again and again, not the betrayal, but the unraveling that followed. The messages. The voice. The calm in her voice when she'd been caught. The total lack of panic. It haunted me in ways her affair didn't. Because it proved something terrifying. She'd already accepted the risk. She was prepared to lose me, just not the lifestyle. Not the comfort. Not the image. She didn't expect me to find the courage to actually let go. So when I did, it disrupted her script. She wasn't mourning the man she'd hurt, she was reacting to the collapse of a safety net she didn't believe I'd cut. The texts came daily. I made a mistake. Can we go to therapy? I wasn't trying to hurt you. But they were all the same underneath, too curated, too diplomatic. There was no weight behind them. No risk. Just a rotation of emotional language and empty pleas designed to see what might still work. I started recognizing patterns. She would text first thing in the morning, something light, like, "Thinking about you. Hope you're okay." Then radio silence for hours. Followed by a surge around 10 p.m. "I miss you so much it hurts. Please answer. Cal, I know I screwed up. I know I broke us. But I swear it wasn't real. It didn't mean anything. That one made me laugh." Didn't mean anything? You don't wear the same red dress from your anniversary dinner for something meaningless. You don't rent a beach house and pour wine with a man you barely know unless you're looking to start a new life or already have. At one point, she sent a picture of us. Our honeymoon. In Banff. I remember that day. It was freezing and we got lost on a trail. I carried her boots in one hand and she kissed my cheek while I was cursing the map. We were laughing in that photo. The caption she wrote? "I still believe in this." As if nostalgia could erase reality. By Thursday, the messages started shifting. Less romantic. More frantic. "Please don't file anything yet. Can we pause? Just talk in person. This doesn't have to be ugly." And that right there told me what this was really about. It wasn't about me. Or love. Or guilt. It was about control. She realized the house was gone. The money. The future she built on both sides of the fence. She wanted damage control. But I wasn't a crisis to be managed anymore. I was already free. I got a call from her sister on Friday. That was unexpected. "Hey, Calvin," Marlene said, her voice cautious. "Tessa's worried. She says you locked her out." I didn't answer immediately. "She told you what she did?" I asked. "She said you two had a fight. Something about trust." She didn't go into details. "Of course she didn't. Marlene," I said calmly, "I have nothing against you. But I'm not discussing this. Not with anyone. She knows why this is happening." A pause. "Is she safe?" she asked. "She's fine," I said. "Just not welcome here anymore." There was a beat of silence. Then, "Okay. I just wanted to make sure." Click. That was it. Her outreach plan had extended as far as family now. Next, I expected a mutual friend, maybe a coworker. And right on schedule, by Saturday, I got an email from a couple we used to double date with. Subject line, "Thinking of you." The body read, "Hey Calvin, just wanted to check in. We heard you and Tessa were going through something. If you ever want to grab a drink or talk, I'm around." Polite. Casual. But clearly fishing. I didn't reply. Because this wasn't a social detour. This was a boundary. One she never thought I'd enforce. A week passed before I saw her again. It was raining that night, the kind of soft, steady rain that feels more like silence than weather. I was upstairs in the bedroom, light off, window cracked open just enough to hear the water tap against the gutter. Then headlights swept across the driveway. I didn't move at first. Just listened. A car door shut. Then footsteps, slow, hesitant. I stood by the window and looked down. There she was. Tessa. Soaked to the bone, coat clinging to her arms. She carried a suitcase in one hand and a small cardboard box in the other. She walked up the porch and stopped just short of the door. Then she knelt and placed something down. I leaned in. Her wedding ring. She set it carefully beside the box and stood there for a moment, unmoving. She didn't knock. Didn't call out. Just stared at the door like it might open on its own. Like maybe if she waited long enough, I'd appear ready to forgive, ready to start over. But I didn't. I stood at the window and watched the woman who had once been everything to me stand in the cold with nothing but memories. She stayed there for nearly an hour. No umbrella. No theatrics. Just silence. And when she finally turned and walked back to her car, I saw something I hadn't expected, not pain. Not defiance. Just emptiness. Because she knew. Not just that it was over, but that she'd bet everything on someone who wouldn't keep her. Her final performance wasn't some plea for redemption. It was the quiet realization that she had nowhere else to go. Within days, everything moved quickly. I listed the house. The realtor came and walked through rooms that still smelled like her perfume and my doubt. I signed the papers without hesitation. That chapter didn't belong to me anymore. The locks? Changed again, this time physically. The new system didn't need passwords. Just fingerprints. Only mine. I relocated to a new city 3 hours north, somewhere with trees and quiet mornings. My job was remote and I'd spent months prepping the transition. The files were backed up, my contacts transferred. I didn't leave anything behind worth chasing. The last tie was the divorce filing. Finalized. Clean. My attorney called it textbook efficient. Tessa never contested anything. She didn't ask for alimony. Didn't fight for assets. Didn't show up in court. Maybe she finally understood that there was nothing left to salvage. I didn't tell anyone where I moved. Not friends. Not family. Not her. I changed my number. Deleted old photos. Shut down the social media accounts we used to share. People say healing takes time. But sometimes healing is a decision. I didn't need to rebuild the past. I needed to build something else. The ring? I sold it. Not out of bitterness. Just finality. The proceeds? I used them to buy a kayak. Something new. Something mine. And as I paddled across a quiet lake that first weekend, watching the sun break through the morning fog, I felt something rare. Not joy. Not freedom. Something better. Stillness. The kind you earn. The kind that says you're not going back. And I never did.